Hi everybody, how are you? This is Ascending with Assata and I am Assata Michelle. Thank you for joining me today. So today I want to talk about taking things for granted. And this became really profound for me just last Sunday. Now, if you were to ask me prior to last Sunday about taking things for granted, I'd be like, no, I'm grateful for, everything. Even the small things, I'm grateful about it. That ain't me. And, I'm that girl that's saying thank you. And, I'm appreciative. And I have to, after Sunday, change my mind about that, what I would say about that. So, Sunday, I had an opportunity to actually go into my place of worship, my church, and I had not been there in, I don't know, weeks for however long COVID was, and churches were shut down because my spiritual leaders obey the law. So we weren't having service in church and still don't have service at church. There are just a few people there. Bishop is doing the message and praise and worship are there. So just a very small amount of people, about 15 people. And so I had the opportunity to go. It was purely by accident. I was going to say coincidence, but there is no coincidence in the original word of God, which is the Torah. And that's what I personally believe. So it wasn't coincidental. And so I hadn't been in there in all of these weeks, right? Months. And when I got there, it was so different. The experience was so different. And it reminded me of how I have taken for granted not being able to go into my place of worship, my church, the building. Because remember, we are the church, the people make up the church, but I'm talking about the actual edifice, the brick and mortar, the building, and how much I took that for granted. And I began to think about afterward how there are indeed other countries, other places where folk aren't allowed to gather and to worship. And so it just made me realize how ungrateful I had been. And so as I thought about that, as y'all know me, my mind is super analytical. My gift is also my menace in that particular venue. And I'm started thinking about, now I'm going over like the course of the last, however long COVID's been happening, like 15 weeks. And so I've been beginning to go over the course of the last 15 weeks, just thinking about even the smallest of things that I could potentially have been taken for granted, and just assuming that it will always be available and or accessible to me. And as I began to think about that, it really became profound for me that it is so easy to lose one's self in just life and just living and just our everyday busyness, that we forget about things that are free to us that we're not grateful for. And so again, just using my own self, is that proper English? My own self. No, I don't think it is. Just using myself as an example, by this past Sunday, I implore of you to just do your own checklist and begin to think about things that you perhaps could have taken for granted just over the past 15 weeks. The tiniest things that we have taken for granted, or one could have taken for granted, because we have this ability. Humans are resilient. And we have this ability to just change lanes and be able to go, okay, so now this is the new norm. Now we're on this train, and get on this train and begin to act in accordance to what is the new norm, not realizing that often we have taken for granted things that we were able to do before, or even things that we're doing now without even taking stock of it. And so again, as I was in that place on Sunday, it just really became profound for me. Like, wow, Assata, you have taken for granted the ability to come into a building, into a particular building. And again, for this case, I'm talking about my place of worship. and how much I missed it and how much it is necessary for me for that moment. And so this week, I just want you to take an opportunity to think about things that you could perhaps have taken for granted and or currently taken for granted, because we have established this new norm. And so establishing this new norm, we are so busy perhaps trying to get acclimated to something new and how we have to behave and operate in the world now, even taking for granted, frankly, the ability to live life outside of your home without a mask. Like, that's huge. That's huge. To get used to wearing a mask and talking with a mask, and you're on the phone if you're outside or at your job, and just talking with this mask on and the limitations that that has. And so I took for granted just the ability to speak without a mask and to breathe in and out without feeling like I'm being suffocated. And so for me, it was just, again, going back and thinking about some small things, some seemingly small things, which are really big now, like as in the case that I gave with wearing the mask. And so my offering for you this week is that you really think about things that perhaps you have taken for granted over these past 15 weeks and really be mindful of what you need to be grateful for and thankful for, and thank God, even in this circumstance that we're currently experiencing, all of us, the world. And I will say that, yes, we are all subject to this same pandemic, but how we're all working through it is differently. And so to honor how you're working through it for yourself, but to also remember and be grateful for things that have been free to us, or really of no thought, and now that is not as accessible to us now. This is Assata Michelle. No, I am Assata Michelle. This is Ascending with Assata. If you are watching via YouTube, please like and subscribe and share. Maybe you don't like it, but maybe somebody else will get something out of it. Please share what you've heard on today. And I leave you with, take stock of your own life and make a note of things that you haven't appreciated in the past, but are so vitally important to your very existence that you should be appreciative for. This is Assata Michelle, Ascending with Assata. Peace.